What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Dad Needs to Talk. I'm your host, Robert, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of catching up, talking about the end of the school year. School is out, kids are out of school. Uh, Went to a very big graduation in my family, and just talking about like the gauntlet I'm preparing for over this upcoming summer, and maybe even a few shows and stuff I've been watching lately. So I hope everybody out there is well. It has been a chaotic time recently, and I kind of just had to have the reminder that there is never really a quote unquote perfect time to record. But before I get into all that, as always, if this is your first time here, then welcome. But if you're a returning listener and or watcher, then welcome back. Y'all know here at Daddy's to Talk, it's all about fatherhood and family, manga, anime, TV shows, movies, and of course, some video games. So, like I said, hope y'all are doing well. As always, for people that are maybe first time watchers, I am the dad who needs to talk. Father of five, three boys, twin girls, and they keep me extremely busy. And also a uncle to many, as I will get into in a little bit. But yeah, man, like it is currently 7:22 a.m. when I am recording this, which is a very weird time for me for a few different reasons. For one, I'm going into work a little bit later today because we got a project we're working on that some key equipment came in towards the end of the day yesterday, and the area that it goes to, whatever, is closer on my side than where the office is. So reach out to the dude. I'm like, hey man, like, do you want me to just bring this to you in the morning or whatever? And so, we live about an hour apart, but we're gonna meet somewhere in the middle. Then I'll go to work. So, but with that being said, I was debating on recording last night. Like I usually tended to record at nights, but I was like, no, I'm gonna go to bed. Went to bed pretty early, but then turned around, woke up at like freaking four something. Lay there for a while. Then it got to close to about six, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go ahead and record. And then, as you maybe heard in the background, my son, Mr. Vash, uh, coughing his lungs out. So, because like I mentioned before, he has very bad allergies, just like my wife. So, so I was like, well, guess I ain't gonna be recording. So, sat around for a while, got him situated. He's laying down. Um, Went and took a shower, got out the shower, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just try to squeeze this in. So, but yeah, like I said, it has been very busy last couple of weeks. Like I said, kids got out of school last Friday. So the summer begins, so to speak. And I was talking to my wife about this. End of last week, I was like, man, like, and I tell this to other parents and stuff. I'm like, if you have a good family support system, whatever, that can give you a little bit of reprieve from your kids, even if it's just a couple of days, a week, whatever, do it. Take advantage of it because you may not always have that. Like in our case, because I mentioned before when the kids were very little and weren't doing nearly as much as they are doing now. Like, best believe those last couple of days of school, we started having bags packed, and there were even some times to where we would pick them up from school on the last day of school, take them straight out to their great grandparents' house. All right, bye, see you in a month or two. And it's like looking back, it's like, man, like there really were stretches where sometimes the kids would be gone the full 2 months plus, where we would go out there maybe once every few weeks, check in, drop off more groceries or more stuff that might be needed. And then, all right, see you in a few more weeks and stuff. But, as time went on and the kids got bigger, got into more activities and stuff, then it started being going from everybody's gone to most of y'all are gone to half of y'all to a few of y'all to nobody. Now everybody's here all the time because there's always stuff going on all year round. Um, so yeah, so if you have somebody, they can give you, like I said, at least like a few days, a week or whatever. Cause looking back on it, you know, on both sides of it, I can see like from my mom's side and also just me as a kid, I enjoyed those breaks where, hey, it's summertime. All right, I'm going to Uncle James' house in Dallas, or you going stay with my brother, stay with my sister. That was the benefit of being the youngest by by a huge gap. Where my siblings were adults and had their own houses and stuff when I was still a child. So, go to my aunt's in Mississippi for the summer or whatever. So yeah, so like I said, it's definitely a thing that's needed on both sides. Like I said, the parent needs a little bit of breathing room, but then also, like I said, the kids, if you can get a chance to for them to spend time with more other family members or friends, whatever the case may be, whatever. So if you have it, take advantage of it while you can, because like I said, like now they haven't left like that in years. Um, but it is what it is. But so yeah, so like I said, school is over, and we were kind of preparing for mini gauntlets to come. So over the course of the summer, um, my oldest son, we got to do some traveling for basketball. So I know, I think maybe we're gonna do a San Antonio thing, but I think that might have had a schedule conflict with something with school basketball that they're doing. So, but I think we're still at least doing maybe like St. Louis and New Orleans later in the summer, and maybe somewhere else. I don't know. So I'm already kind of, looking at my calendar, trying to plan that stuff out, plan those trips out and stuff. And then I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's really just a lot of that type of preparation. And as well as, so my older three, they're getting ready to go into 11th grade. So it's a lot of, further preparation for whatever they may choose to pursue once they graduate high school in 2 years, man. Like two Mays from now, they will be getting up out of here. Fingers crossed. But no, but real talk, it's like I know not only just from myself and my wife's experiences and stuff, but my nieces and nephews, as I'll talk about in a moment. Like I know how much preparation it is for one graduation in college and stuff, whatever. I got to do three at the same time, and I know for sure two of them, if not all three, might also be trying to pursue athletics at that next level. So that's a whole other, can of worms and stuff too, on top of just the academic side of things that we were kind of looking at. And so there's probably going to be some times over this next coming up school year where we've talked with them about like, hey, it might be missing some school here and there if we maybe have to do a, uh, some potential training camps for basketball or something, whatever, or maybe even potential college visits. You never know, but it's like that preparation stuff starts, like really, really begins now, and also just like this summer, them preparing themselves all around for okay, hey, those that are doing athletics, take advantage of the summer because it's like it's coming up quick. You ain't got too many more of these left, and so you want to try to be ready to roll when school start back in August or whatever. But yeah, so like I said, just a lot of like I said, preparation for what's coming with 11th grade for them. And even, my middle son, 8th grade and stuff, he has more stuff he's wanting to do going into the 8th grade. And then, of course, my youngest, Mr. Vash, um, preparing him for 3rd grade. um, and his own challenges and hurdles, because with him being, as I've talked about before, him being autistic and being on the spectrum and stuff, it's like trying to, you know, uh, navigate his needs and stuff like that. Which, side note, I'm gonna mention this because I don't think I'm. No, no, no. I wouldn't mention because the last episode I just did a K manga thing. So we had a end of school year meeting with this teacher or whatever a couple weeks ago, and we discovered, and this is might be weird to say, but it's like we discovered that Vash has been doing cursive writing. So we were, just talking. She was showing us little workbooks and stuff, whatever. And then she put out one and opened it up, and it's cursive writing. We were like, oh, wait, y'all are teaching cursive writing because so I had to double check with my kids to be sure. My older ones, I was like, did y'all learn cursive? And so my daughter was like, we started learning it 1 year when they were, in elementary or whatever, but she was like, it was just that 1 year and then they never did it again. And so I was like, okay, so, cause I do remember that they kind of stopped doing cursive writing for several years. Cause I think my middle son, he completely missed it. So it's like my older three got like a small taste of it. Middle son completely missed it. Now they're bringing it back for my youngest, and so I'm like, okay, but yeah, so that was like I said, just an interesting thing to learn. I've also been seeing that a lot of schools in the DFW Metroplex are also next school year going to be reducing the amount of screens and stuff. So instead of like, hey, as an incentive to like some of like the younger kids, being like, hey, you're doing good, you'll get more iPad or tablet time or whatever, and instead of being like, no, we're gonna convert that into more recess time or other things like that, and kind of reducing a lot of the like screen stuff and going a little bit more physical books and pen and paper, pencil and paper and stuff, whatever. So yeah, so we'll see how those transitions or those changes kind of work across different districts and see how that all goes. Um, but yeah, so like I said, we're just like really preparing for these next steps of school because, like I said, they're all at all three stages are all kind of you know hitting some big milestones, and so that'll kind of take me to my next thing I want to touch on is speaking of milestones. My niece, my sister's youngest daughter, uh, graduated last week, and so I went up there to my brother-in-law's house, and my other nephew came into town, as well as some other aunts and cousins that I hadn't seen in probably 10, 15 plus years. So it was just a very nice occasion to get to see a lot of family and stuff I hadn't seen in a very long time. And then, like I said, all coming together for this special moment because, on multiple levels, and I'm not going to go to the whole story again, but it's like, for one, those of y'all that's been listening to the podcast for a while already know, one of the reasons why I started Dad Needs to Talk was back in, end of 2020, early 2021, I lost both my sister and my mother back to back. And my niece, the graduation I went to, whatever, that's that sister's youngest daughter, my sister's youngest daughter. And so it was just a joyous occasion on multiple fronts. Because, my niece, without getting into everything, whatever, but like, so she, I consider her in a sort of way like my first quote unquote child because I've mentioned before, I became an uncle when I was 4 years old. So, my oldest nephew, I'm 36. He is about to be 32 on his next birthday. And then, then I had a nephew and niece born when I was 9, another niece at 11, nephew at 13, niece at 18, which is this one that graduated. So 18 years later, she is now 18, finishing high school, and she was born with, some heart defects. If I remember correctly, she had multiple heart surgeries, maybe even a heart transplant. I can't remember that part, but not for sure. Heart surgeries, like it was really bad. But she persevered and made it through the gauntlet, and she is reached this humongous milestone. And she's heading up to college and all that awesome stuff. And so of course, I had to make sure I go support her and stuff. And so, like I said, just kind of be there for the moment and stuff. Because, like I said, she was the first one of my nieces and nephews born after I quote unquote became an adult. So I was there for the whole shebang and had a lot more responsibility with her compared to the other ones that I literally grew up with because with her, by the time she started school, I had finished college and I was living with my sister then for a while, and so I was helping getting her to school or picking her up from school and different other little things in between. And so yeah, it's just a beautiful thing just to see it all come full circle and to see she's getting ready to embark on that next journey of her life and stuff. But and I think actually, so this is the same niece that I think I had talked about a couple years ago. I think I maybe did like a TikTok or something or whatever on it. But you know, she big into anime and even reading manga and stuff. She actually prefers more like horror, thriller type of stuff, whatever. Now the thriller stuff, yeah, horror. Uncle Rob can't do, don't do horror stuff. But that's always been like a fun thing over the years, and of course her and all my nieces and nephews, all of my sister's kids. Growing up, we all bonded over watching like Avatar: Last Airbender, Regular Show, Adventure Time. Those are some of our staples. Playing Little Big Planet and Rayman, Origins and Legends, and those games, and Sonic Racing and all that stuff. So yeah, so lots of amazing, awesome memories and stuff of being the cool nerdy uncle, uh, and seeing all my nieces and nephews continue to carry on, being nerds in their own right and stuff. So, but yeah, so just congratulations to her. And I also got to shout out my brother in law. So he did like a very awesome thing. So he had kept all of my nieces and nephews graduation stuff. So all their cap and gowns, all their diplomas and stuff. The cap and gowns he kept hung up in the closet, and all their diplomas he kept on the shelf, whatever. And so after the graduation, when everybody came back to the house, he disappeared in the room and came out with everything. He made all of them put on their cap and gowns, and then do a group picture and stuff, whatever. So that was just like a very special moment. Um, just seeing that happen and stuff, and to get pictures and stuff of that moment captured, and stuff. So, but yeah. So like I said, it was just a very awesome day. Just to be over there, hang out, catch up with people and stuff, and to spend time and stuff. So, but yeah, so shout out to all the graduates out there. I had a lot more cousins and family friends, even some classmates I grew up with. That some of them had kids before we finished high school, and some of them those kids just graduated this year, which is another kind of weird, like, whoa, man, like time really passed by that, you know, those kids from back then are now young adults and heading off into the world on to the next stages of their life. So, but yeah, just shout out to all the graduates out there. So, all right, so I got a little bit more time, so I'm gonna kind of just touch on. Let me see, just a couple of things because I'm gonna keep this pretty brief. But I definitely wanted to make sure I got a little something recorded because I was looking at the calendar, and so starting next week, I believe. Yeah, so starting next week, a lot of video game related stuff is happening. So, uh, PlayStation is doing a state of play on June 2nd. So, next Tuesday, Xbox is doing their thing on the 7th, and then there's other things in between. Um, they just announced the long rumored new Witcher 3 expansion that is coming out next year, I believe, sometime. Let me see, what did they call it? Witcher 3 Songs of the Past. So yeah, so that's coming out next year. Um, I'm I things have been so busy. I haven't really even got to play much games and stuff lately, whatever, because like I'm like at the very end of Pragmata, so I want to go ahead and get that wrapped up. I started mixtape, pretty much almost done with that because it's only like a few hours long. But then like the new that Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight came out recently and looks really good, but I'm probably gonna wait till that go on sale. And then that new James Bond 007 First Light game from the Hitman studio that just came out yesterday, today, whatever. And so I've been seeing a lot of good things about that, but I'm also probably gonna wait for that to go on sale too. But yeah, so just lots of exciting gaming stuff coming up. So I was like, man, let me do a little recording about the graduation and school out stuff, whatever, so that you know I know for sure I'm probably gonna wait until 2 weeks from now, so probably that second week of June, and then just do a big catch up stream thing. Maybe we'll see. With the game related news, so we'll see. I kind of play that by ear, but yeah. So lots of game stuff on the horizon. Um, what was the other thing I was gonna mention? Do. Yeah, I'm gonna just touch on a lot of this stuff like super briefly because I don't have a lot of in depth stuff to say about a lot of this. But you know, I mentioned this with my niece, by my nieces and nephews, whatever. Regular show, The Lost Tapes came out. So basically, this is a new set of episodes that they are doing for regular show. So very happy to have this series back. Like I mentioned, it means a lot to me and my nieces and nephews. But yeah, I got to only watch the first new episode or whatever because they put it up on YouTube for free or whatever. Now, I, I sometimes I never understand like the thinking behind a lot of these corporations and companies and stuff, whatever. But like they air the episodes, one new episode every day for like a week or two straight, but they're not going to put it on HBO Max until sometime in June, specifically in the U.S. Other parts of the world, it's on there. So weird region thing. So yeah, so I I can find it online if I really wanted to, but I'm like I'm not too pressed for it. But so I'm like okay, but that's how like I said that first episode fantastic. So I'm excited to see more. Um, Dang, it has been a couple weeks since I recorded. Yeah, so Daredevil season 2, yes, that came out, was really good. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, don't have a lot to say, but definitely looking forward to season 3. I also enjoyed the Punisher. What was it like? Last shot or whatever it was, first shot, last shot, whatever it was. Little special episode that they did or whatever. Um, what else? So okay, so I went to the movies a few times last couple of weeks, whatever. And a lot of stuff I watched was just kind of just like, hey, just turn off your brain, have some fun. So a couple weeks ago, or whatever, I went and watched this movie called In the Gray, which hold on, In the Gray. Yeah, so it is literally just a action movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and Henry Cavill. And basically, the basic premise of this movie is that these are basically debt collectors, but collectors for bad people. And so these two guys are part of like a covert group that goes over the after these like drug lords or warlords or whatever that took or borrowed money from governments or different places or whatever. So, like I said, it was just like a couple hours of just turn off your brain, watch some good looking people, explosions, do missions and stuff, whatever. It was what hour 38. So yeah. Also shout out to Isa Gonzalez. But no, but real talk, like I said, it was just a simple, just hey, watch some cool explosions happen. So that was that movie. Uh, I also watched the Mandalorian and Grogu movie last week. Got to see that one in a Dolby Theater. And honestly, it's like if you enjoy the Mandalorian TV show, go watch it. It's as simple as that. Like it is literally just like a 2 hour condensed version of the TV show, whatever. It's just Mando and Grogu traversing the universe, um, going on missions and stuff. This one involving the Huts. And so, yeah, like I said, it was just a simple, good time. Can't really ask for nothing more than that. Like, I'm a very casual Star Wars fan, but I enjoyed it. And shout out to that music on, I think it was the place called Shikari. Um, Very dope. Dun, 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 dun. Very good music. But yeah, so go check out Mandalorian and Grogu. And let's see. Okay, so I gave this movie with Kiki Palmer in it called was it I Love Boosters or something like that or whatever. And I was not vibing with it at all, man. Like I gave it a shot because I'm like, okay, little, artsy, smaller project or whatever. I'm gonna give it a shot. And yeah, it had a couple of laughs or whatever, but overall it was just weird and just not really my vibe. But luckily it was only like an hour 40 or so, whatever. So, and I didn't really pay that much for it or whatever, maybe a couple bucks if that, because I got gift cards and different stuff, whatever. So, but yeah, man, yeah, like I said, it wasn't nothing too crazy to it, but like I said, I just enjoy going to the movies, and that's something I'm probably going to touch on a little bit deeper in another episode because there is a movie coming out this week that I want to check out called Tuner um, that I happened to come across when I went to go watch in the Gray a couple of weeks um, because they played a trailer for it or whatever. And basically, it follows this guy who is a piano tuner because he has like very sensitive hearing, and he ends up getting wrapped up in this like heist group, whatever, because he's able to listen to the mechanisms on the locks and stuff, whatever, and help them pick and open safes and stuff, whatever. So, seems really interesting. So I'm looking forward to checking that out soon. And then I think middle of June is also that that Logan esque Robin Hood movie that's coming out sometime middle of June and stuff. So, but yeah, so a couple of things that are on my radar uh, for the coming weeks and stuff that I look forward to talking about very soon. Because actually, when is Disclosure Day June or was that July? Let me see. June 12th. Ooh. Okay. Okay. So there's a few things. So Disclosure Day. Okay. So yeah, movies are about to start rolling in. So All right, so last couple of things I'm gonna touch on very briefly. Um, and apologies for not having all the background change and all this stuff, but I gotta keep this simple because it is almost 8 a.m. So I need to get out the door and get on the road and get this uploaded and work on this while I'm at work. But very briefly, I'm gonna just shout out. So I read, I think it was volume 0 of a manga called Dragon Circus. Man, like the art of it looks super dope. Uh, and the cover art, the premise, everything. Let me see, Dragon Circus 0. Let's see. Yeah, so I had checked that volume 1 of this. So okay, so here's a synopsis. So, death to all dragons. The sudden appearance of massive monsters known as dragons throws the world into chaos. The new United Nations, created as a response to the threat, puts together a team known as Dragon Slayers. Among them, others, a vampire, android, witch, uh, blah, 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 blah. Ace pilot Momo may still be in grade school, but she just might have the skills to save humankind. Blah, 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 blah. Honestly, I read the first volume and I felt nothing. Like, some of the action looked kind of cool, but like overall, it was like when I finished reading it, I had zero urge or desire to read any more of it. So, I've read and checked out enough series to where, like, typically if I'm not at least interested in seeing what's next to come by the time I finish a volume, then yeah, it's one that's not going to be of interest to me. So unfortunately, like I said, been looking forward to because the cover art looked really cool, but once I actually read that volume, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to continue this. Now, one thing I will talk about continuing. So I got to give a shout out to my boy Yato from Yato Plays, because he been talking about this series for years at this point. He even DM'd me a year or so back, uh, with like a link to read it and all this stuff, whatever, to check it out. And that series is called Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now, book 8, I believe, just came out recently. And so I was like, okay, I was, just kind of looking at something different. I was like, you know what? Let me give the audiobook a try, whatever, because I've heard good things about it. Man, first audiobook was like 13 hours. And so I listened to it over the course of a week. And I would say probably by the time I got through that first chapter, I was like, okay, interest peaked. And then, yeah, man, it has been so freaking good. Where am I at? I am on chapter 18 of book 2 of the second audiobook. Now, uh, so I guess to give a premise of what Dungeon Crawler Carl is, and this might be a longer explanation for another day, but basically, uh, there is a event that happens that wipes out most of humanity, and the survivors are transported into this intergalactic dungeon. And basically, you find out that, slight spoilers just for the setup and premise or whatever, but you find out that this dungeon is part of like a intergalactic like TV show. And so you basically have to try to traverse and clear as many levels of this dungeon as possible, and you're fighting, different creatures and enemies and stuff, whatever, and you're leveling up, you're getting special abilities, etc., 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 just like a game. And so, basically, it's just a matter of just surviving and, like I said, trying to get stronger and at least get to a certain point where either you fully clear a dungeon or you at least get deep enough to where you can negotiate better terms for, like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna stop at floor 10 what are my options? Okay, I can stay here or I can do this job or blah, 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 blah. So, like I said, very basic without giving away too much or whatever, but man, it is so freaking good. Like I said, I am partway through the second audio book. And like I said, like I talk about all the time, like how much driving and stuff I do for work, and just with the kids and stuff, how much traveling around we do, whatever. So I'm always in the car. So this has been a perfect companion for me, because a lot of the chapters are maybe like 15, 20-ish minutes a piece. And that is just perfect for if I'm just running some errands locally or whatever, where by the time I go drive, drop somebody off and come back, that's maybe a good chunk of a chapter. And then my commute to and from work, sometimes that's a couple of chapters or more, depending on the day and traffic that I'm knocking out and stuff. So, but man, Dungeon Crawler Carl has been so freaking fun to listen to enjoy, and I'm glad I finally got around to it. Yes, it took me a while, but sometimes, hey, you wait and you end up with having more at your disposal to consume. So, bam. So, but with that being said, it is almost 8 o'clock, so I need to get my butt up out of here. And yeah, like I said, there's some other stuff I'll talk about another day. Like I said, I'll probably talk about that tuner movie, maybe depending on how I like it, and some other stuff. I think that Nicolas Cage noir Spider-Man came out today, so I might maybe check that out. I also watched a Netflix series called Legends, so there's stuff to talk about. And somebody from work is calling me now, so I will wrap things up here. So, but as I always say, treat yourself to something nice. Read some manga, watch some anime, TV shows, and movies, play some video games, and of course, live your best life. And with that, I am out. I will catch you on the next one. Y'all be easy. Peace.